Alright, so I'm just going to go ahead and create a new file. So I'll save it as lesson 6C, and then I have it as HTML. Alright, so I have that saved. I have that saved like that, and then the next thing I want to do is, okay, from elements continues, from element continues. So apart from that, so we've been working with inputs. We've shown ourselves the various input elements: input type equals to text, input type equals to password, input type equals to email, input type equals to URL, input type equals to month, input type equals to number, input type equals to time. So let's see some more input types that we've got before we look at other elements. So we have input type equals to image. So we have an input type that is called an image, and you can pretty much, like others, you can give it a name. So you can give it a name so you can create a reference to it later on. So image, so I can call it my image, or however I want it. Now, so if you save this now, so and go ahead and check up what we got, we'll just see an image placeholder without the image itself. So if I have this as open that with Chrome, so I have something like this which doesn't have nothing. Okay, so I'm just going to have this because it's an image placeholder and there's no image itself, so we have to specify which image we want shown. So we have some couple of images in our directory earlier on, so I can just use any of them. Let's say I have jobs.jpg or any other one. So if I save that and refresh, then I'm going to have that guy there. So, and by default, without even wrapping any anchor tag around this, we've done anchoring, we've done the href, that's linking, without even putting any link around it. By default is behaving like a link, so he has that thing and is linkable. And then, so what we want to do is try to specify when they click on it, where it should go. So we call it form action. Now, so if for instance we want it linked to one of our pages, let's say lesson 3.html, we want it linked to lesson 3.html, I have this save. Then if I refresh now, and click on it, it still doesn't go there. The reason it does not go there is this requires you to wrap a form, because it's acting pretty much like a form submission, and you can't submit something that is not available. So the form needs to be available, so, and that would then take us to, so when they click on it, and then it's going to take us to lesson 3.html. It's one of the pages that we created earlier on, just in case you've not been following us from the beginning. So if I click on this now, this takes me to what we created earlier on as a link. That's lesson 3 class. So I can go back to where I am. So this is a form. Input type equals to image, specifying the source of the image that you want to show. If I want words, all these images, I already have them in my directories. You can go ahead and download an image and put it in the same folder that you're following through with. So I have that, so I can have this. It is another person. If I click, it goes to the same place. Alright, so this is a way of just linking, using the form an image field as a submission. Alright, so we've got that. We can actually trigger something else apart from just going to a page, lesson 3.html. Now, pretty much like we did to the image tag, we can manipulate the width and height attribute of the image that we got. So we have this. So if it is too big, we can use the width, and Of course, the style tag still applies. You can use a style tag, style it as you want, give it a width, a height, maximum height, minimum height, just like we've done on the. I'm just going to leave that to you on previous videos. So this is input type equals to image. So we have a couple of other input types. Okay, pretty much we've been able to cover majority of the input types. So let's move on. Now I want to introduce us to drop downs. Drop down. So you want to have a drop down. You want to have a drop down where people can select from. Alright, so we call it select. Alright, so the select there are two ways of doing drop down in HTML5. There are two ways of doing it. So I'm going to be giving us the two ways. So we have select. Okay, so select has a name equals to, you give it any name depending on which list you're creating. For instance, you may be creating countries, you may be creating states in a particular country. Probably you're creating a local vicinity in a country. So pretty much you can have any sort of list. So you name that as the your intention, the content of that select. So let's say favorite country. So let's say I have a favorite country, and I got this. So this is unlike the input elements select, because it has content. Okay, so it's what we could call like you have open and it has a close tag. Okay, alright, so here you're gonna have what we call options. Options will be the items within the select that people can select from. So I can put options, and I may have my first options to be select something. So I can just make this select your favorite country, or I could have put that is as my label. So let me say I want this to be, so I have United States, and let's say I have that. Then I say United Kingdom. Let me just say England. Let me say I want this to be Nigeria. I got this to be South Africa. So something like this. So these are the list can continue. So you have it like that. So let me have my labels just have we've been having in previous classes. So let's have I have select. I can wrap it out around. So select your favorite country. Okay, so and I have that's break into lines. So if we refresh that, so we're going to see something. Select your favorite country. So because this guy is not broken, so let me have a BR and of course a temporary paragraph. So let's say we have something like that. Okay, so if we refresh this, so we're going to have it that way. Select your favorite countries, and we have United States, England, Nigeria, South Africa, like that. So this is the drop down, so you can have it like that. So the list can continue, so the user can select any one of the lists. They can select anyone from the list. This is one way of doing it, and before HTML5 you really do not have an option. Okay, so that is that. Then if you want, by default you want one of it to be selected, when you do like this, the first one that you write on the list will be the one that will be selected, and then that may not necessarily be your choice. So let me say I even make the first one empty. I make the first option empty. this way, like that. So when we refresh, nothing is there. So select your favorite country, we see nothing until you scroll down. Now if you want to set a particular country as your favorite, by default, just like we add values, so I can say, okay, I come into any of this, I come in here and I say selected. So when I say selected, it means it's the one by default that would be as selected, so it's not going to be empty. Nigeria would just be the guy that will show up there, even though its position is relatively downward. So because of that selected, it shows up. And then option has a couple of more attributes. So it has a value attribute, because this one that you see here is pretty much like just something that user sees. So but in the event that you did not put a value, he uses this as a value of that. So you can have a value and you can specify the value of that. So you may have a value that is contrary to this. You may have the value to be US, while what is shown to the users will be United States. Then I can equally have it here as well. So I can have value and equals to England. So I can have ENG, where what is shown to the user is English. So I can come in here and put a value, and this value can be NG as Nigeria, like that. So here I can have a value, and the value would be SA. So if we submit this form now, what would go to server will be its value, not what it's here. So what you want submitted to the server, that's what is important to us, is this. So this is not going to get submitted, but in the event that this is absent, just like I said, this becomes the value that goes to the server. So you have it there, so you can see that it still remains what we're having, but there's at the back, we've been able to change its name. And if this form is successfully submitted and we've written a script that takes it to the database, this is what would get into the database. Alright, so that is another thing that we need to know under that. And then also, if I want the certain number to show by default, we have about 4 of it. So we have 1 2 3 4. So it's US, England, and all of that. So if you have a certain number to show, I can come in here and I say size equals to 2. So let's say I say size equals to 2, and I go in there, refresh. So I can see how many of it show by default. We have England and Nigeria are showing by default. So when I scroll, I can see the rest. Alright, so this is different from the usual select that you see, that you just see only one showing by default. So only one item is showing. So for any reasons, if you want a number of them to show at the same time, so you can use that. So you must have filled certain form, maybe some overseas admission form, where you see something like that. So you can have, let's say, size equals to we want all of them to be show at the same time. So we can say 4, or let's say 5. So you may be wondering what kind of language was used. It's still the same, your HTML. So you have, this is still select, so you can have it like that. It still selects. It's just that we're showing all of them. Instead of asking people to drop down before they see it, we just show everything that we got. Then they can just go ahead and scroll through and pick. So that is about size. So size shows us the number of options at the same time by default that we want the users to see, as opposed to just the one that we're used to in the normal select. Okay, so that is that about sizing. And another thing that it's important is, what if I have multiple favorite countries? Like myself, I have multiple. So what if I want to select multiple? This does not allow for that. I can only pick one. So even if I hold control to tomorrow, it's not going to do anything. So you can only select one. But now I want to be able to select multiple. Take this, and take this, and in fact take all of them as my favorite. So multiple selection is possible. So all we need to do is just add multiple attributes here. So if we come in here and add multiple attributes, alright, so we'll save that and go ahead and refresh. So it means now I can pick multiple. So just by holding down your shift key, you can pick multiple countries. So shift key, shift key, shift key. I've been able to pick 3 countries at the same time, or 4 countries at the same time. That's multiple. Then this doesn't mean that it got to be so let me take it to size 1, which is what we're used to. Then it's come back here, so I can have let me just remove size from it, so you can have a feel of something. So we have something like this. So if I do this, easily I can have that picked. So let's return that there, so you can, for your reference. Okay, so that's one of the ways of dealing with this, and this is the traditional way of drop down, until HTML5 came with what we call data list. HTML5 came with what we call data list. Data list is trying to add the drop down functionality to an ordinary input field. So we've dealt extensively with input fields, various one, the emails, the URLs, the stuff, just name it. Now, so if you want to have a drop down with that effect, for instance, an email, you want to have drop down or emails, and you want to enforce that it got to be emails. Okay, so data list ensures that you are able to do that. Have a drop down functionality attached to an input field. And how does that work? So let's see how that works. This is another drop down. Now, so this drop down, I just want to say select your favorite car. Select your favorite car. So I will have input. Look at how that works. Input, and you can just have list. What is important here is list equals to give it a name. So I can call it my 5 cars. That's my favorite cars. I have that. Okay, then after that I'm going to have a tag called data list. Data list is introduced in HTML5. Now in the data list, I'm going to give it an ID that is exactly equals to the list name I gave here. So I say list equals to my 5 cars. So it has to be exactly this, otherwise there won't be a linkage between this and this. Alright, so this is what this list equals to, is the one that is linking this and data list. So it knows that this is going to be this data lists are going to be working with this input field. So this is the name that ensures that this is their bind, and that's the point where they are bound. Alright, so after that, the next thing I'm just going to do is pretty much like your select. So you have option, and then you have option closes. So you can have my favorite car, you can have a Toyota. Sorry, I'm old school, so I'm just going to name traditional cars. So we have Toyota under just names of cars, Nissan and BMW, like that. So these are drop downs, and they are going to be working for this input field. So let me say I come in and I say select your favorite car. Okay, so if I have that there, and probably have this broken, and of course I want this broken as a break as well, and then probably have something like that. So if we save this and we come in here, refresh it, so we see this, and you can see that it's having a drop down functionality. So it's pretty much like he's imaginary, it doesn't look as much as this guy looks. So let's say if I remove this, for instance, from this, you can compare their outlook. So if I do that, you refresh, so you can see the outlook of a traditional drop down, and this is the data list drop down, like that. So anyone that you're comfortable you can use, they have their use cases. This is the traditional, so this one is just to give distance, and I can come in here and type something else that is different from that. I can have it here and type a Ferrari, if that is correct. You understand, this is not part of the list. This is not part of the preset list, so I could type something like that there. All right, so this one here does not allow me to type, so but this one allows me. Others I can type. All right, so that is another ways of handling of drop down. So the next thing I want to introduce us to is a simple text area. Let's say you're applying for an overseas admission, and you're asked to write essay about yourself, and you must have done that if you've done something like that. So the fields that you can see that the field you type in might be very, very big, and it's not an input field, that a tiny straight input field. So there's a field called text area. This an area that is designed to take a huge inputs at a time from the user. So we have text area, and we can just pretty much have it like that, text area. Before we move into the attribute, the text area could have its name equals to anything. So let's say I'm using it to pick address, I'll give it an address. If I'm using it to pick about myself, so I can write about myself, stuff like that. So just like how every other names of any of the HTML elements, so the names you give will indicate what it does, and of course it's only useful to you and the program that you're using to pick it and dumping it in the database. All right, so we have that as the basic text area. I'm going to come back to this. So I say specify your address. So no, I'm not using address tag, so I just say specify your address, not address tag. Okay, so and I use BR, and of course have this pasted here so we can have some clarity. Now, so this is the address bar, so you can see that it's bigger than this by default, even though we've not changed its attribute. So we can come in here, and if you want that text area to be bigger, we can come here and style it. You know how to style, so you can say style width and height. You can specify that. But beyond that, it has a follow rows and columns. So let's say I have a row. I can specify a row to be, let's say, 20. So if I say 20, it means it's going to go downward by 20. So row is line after line after line after line, like that. So if I do this, you see that it will go down like this, downward. So you can see it's downward. Then if I want it to go sideways, then there is a column attribute as well. So if I say column 20 as well, so you can see it's becoming very bigger. So let me say column 40. So it's bigger. Column 80, a lot bigger. So here I can type, continue to type, enter, type, enter, type, like that. So let me just pick in lorem here, and I'm bringing. So let's say I have lorem, and I just have that cuts. So and then when we can have it continuously like that. So this is a text area. This is a text area. So I'm pretty sure you must have seen it before. Okay, so this is how we would deal with that. The next thing I want us to look at is um, okay. So even this text area, we want to set its default value. We were setting the default value of input field as value equals to something. So if I set the default value as value equals to something, look at what happened. It doesn't get set. So let's say I refresh this and everything goes away, and no default value, even though I'm setting a value. Alright, so if this one in this place, if you set a default value, it shows. So let's say default value equals to Yamaha or something like that, and then you have it like this. So you can see a default value is showing, but default value is not showing for this. Alright, so that is because this is not the way to do it. So if I come in here and I say default value, so that will be the content. This is a container, so its content would you do it like you did paragraph and all of those. So I can put this default contents like that. So when you do that, you can see a default content coming through. You can see a default content coming through. You can have that, and lorem. So we can have all of that in there. So the next thing we want to look at is output field. There's a field in HTML5 that is called outputs. This is not totally supported on all browsers. It's not supported on Microsoft Edge as good as we said it is. Microsoft Edge 11 is not supported on it, and of course the earlier version of Microsoft Internet Explorer would not support an output. But let's see how output can be used. Output actually shows, we have input fields, and then it just makes sense that we have something that is called output as well. So output shows the result of a calculation of fields. So if you have two fields and then maybe two input fields, and then you want them calculated, and you want the answer to show, and you want the answer as it shows dynamically on the page. So that is an output field. So let's see how that works out. So let's say I have another form. Let me create another form. And then I name it as name equals to outcome something. So so this has we have to write small bit of JavaScript, but there's nothing to scare about. So let's say we have this is the output field. Alright, this is an output field. Now the output field shows an output of of an input field. Okay, so let's say we have this input field here. So we have input. Let's say we have a range. Type equals to range, and we set a value to it. So let's say we set a value to it to be, let's say, 30, and let's give it a name. Let's say name is initial value, or let me call it X, and then I can give it an ID as well, just to identify it, and I call that X as well. Okay, so if I have that here, and we got that, and then let's say I have another input field, then type equals to range as well. I set a value to it to be bigger. Let's say I set a value 70. and then I give it a name. I call it Y. It could be anything, and then I give it an ID and I call it a Y. So I do that. Having done that, then my input field is going to be a computation of these two. So let me say I just put a label of say 0, and then let's say we have 80, something like this. Alright, so and we have this to be equals, so I just have that. Now if I look onto my page, so I see something 0, 80 plus equals to, or let me say plus 80 equals to and that. So let me set this to 30, since I set my minimum, my value is set to 30, but it could be anything. So I set that, and I put this here, plus 80 equals to, or plus 70. That's the default value, plus 70, equals this. Alright, so now the output, I want it to be named Z, and I want the output is for A, is for X and B, X and Y. Alright, so the output is for X and Y, and we have it like that. Okay, so if I save this and I have this that way, that when I move this, nothing happened yet. If I move it, nothing happened yet. Alright, so for it to happen, like I said, we need to write a bit of just more not so important JavaScript. So I can say on input, so if input is put on input, then I can say x dot z dot value, so its value is going to change, will be equals to, I will pass this as integer. So never mind about this yet, you may not need this, I'm just introducing it to you, so just in case you see somewhere and you say you've undergone an HTML5 training and this was never mentioned, so that's why I'm mentioning it. If you can pick it, fine. If you can't pick it, don't worry too much, and just follow through. And so you have x dot value, so that's to pick the value of this one. Alright, and then you should then add it to, you should pass this other value as int as well. Then that is y dot value. So in essence, what we are saying is, if input is changed, the z value, that's the value of the output, should always be equal to the summation of this and this in integer form. That is what this means of value, and we have that. Okay, so this is alt has been equal. So alt has been equal, we can see it changing like that as you move from the slides. That got changed. Take this to 0 and take this to 0, both of them at 0 level. Take this to 100, take this to 100, both of them at 100, so you have 200. So this is an output field here. This one is an output field, giving a calculation of this. So it mustn't be a range. We could use output to calculate any other thing. It could be, we have two text input type equals to text, so we can calculate what they are typing inside the two of them and have an output result here. And so that is an output field. So we've been able to explore pretty much if not all, I think most of all the HTML elements that you find out there. We looked at input type equals to text, emails, URLs, image, um, month, week, number, name it. So we did select, we did radios, we did checkbox and all of that. Alright, so this is this about this form. So an exercise that I'm going to give you will be to do design a form for higher institution registration. Design an higher institution registration form. When you just got admission into an higher institution and you want to have that form, so you just Google any of these good schools, look for their form, and then try to build the same form yourself. So if you can do it, congratulations, and I would like to see it. If you can just send me the link of that.